Hello and welcome back to another episode of Awaken, Heal and Transform with your host, me, Francesca Raffa. That is right, it is another week and I have another exciting guest on today's episode, and her name is Manuela. She is an absolutely incredible lady. I had a little catch-up call with her a couple of weeks ago, and I connected with her via Instagram through a few mutual followers. And her energy was just so captivating. And then I spoke to her and it just all made so much sense. She has a very, very high vibe, guys. So I cannot wait for you to meet her and for me to speak to her and interview her today. So Manuela is a spiritual medium and a vocal coach. So she channels messages from spirit guides and relays them, which is incredible. So I can't wait to find out about her journey and how she connected with her spirit guides, which she says has always been there from a young age. She can always remember this deep connection to her spirit guides, and the more that just keep coming through as well. From what she mentioned previously to me, her recent encounter with intergalactic beings. So let's welcome Manuela on today's episode. Hi, Manuela. Thank you so much for joining the Awaken, Heal and Transform podcast today. It is an absolute pleasure. And every time I speak to you, I always just want to sort of leap out in song. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it's just your energy. It's so high vibe that it gets me wanting to like sing and be super joyous. So I'm very honored that we have connected via Instagram and that you have joined me today. As we mentioned so many times, you know, time is so precious, and through our time, we can really share our stories that we can help others. And that's ultimately what this podcast is all about. And you are an incredible lady that I have wanting to connect with, to share your journey and to share your personal stories that can help inspire others. And I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago, so I have lots of snippets of stuff that I definitely want to ask you and go into a little bit more detail. But firstly, please just introduce yourself and talk about your journey this far. You know, where have you got to this far? Because obviously you're a vocal coach as well, and a spiritual medium.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. I loved it just the same as you do. And I've always loved singing as a child. And unfortunately, my parents told me I couldn't sing very well. And I wanted originally to become a singer. But I wasn't allowed to. So when I was 14, I joined a musical and I got voice problems. And I had to go to a speech therapist. And that way, I knew when I entered that lady's room, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a speech therapist specialized in voice problems and everything with performance. And then I was 14. So I joined the education when I was 21. I jumped freshly from being a speech therapist, and I started to work. And a year later, I found out that not everybody was listening or hearing in voices what I heard, because one of my friends, she would go on holiday and she asked me, "Do you want to replace me?" And I said, "Of course." So one day we shared, and at the end of the day, Andrea is her name, we're still good friends. And she said, "And how was your day?" And I started, "Well, this lady, blah, 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 she broke her ankle. This guy is going to divorce. This kid is really scared in the dark, and therefore his throat is clogged." And she was looking at me. "Do you really mean that?" I said, "You hear that too, right?" And she said, "No." And that was actually my first time that I found out that I was hearing things that most of my colleagues couldn't or wouldn't hear. And actually, it was quite a shock. And I talked with my parents about it, and they told me, "You better not share it." But I wanted to share it, and a lot of people said, "And what do you hear in my voice?"
Mhm.
And then when I told him, a lot of them didn't want to know. So I decided to use it to help people. But by then, at that age, at 22, I didn't know that a lot of information was processed by their spirit guides. I thought I just heard everything. But over time, I started to find out that I saw lights changing. I saw energies. I called it my internal cinema. I started to see little movies about what happened with people.
Mm.
And I started to use it in my work and in my connections, but I wasn't freely sharing it with people anymore by then
Mhm.
because of the, well, you have to prove it.
Mm.
And when I shared it, there were a lot of people in my environment. Ooh, and who's living in that house? Tell me all about them. I said, I don't feel like having to help me with the word prove
Mhm.
that my information is right.
Mm.
And it took me actually a long time to come on terms with that I was like this. But it explained a lot for me. Also, that I was a high sensitive person. I found it out later on. But
Mhm.
it explained so much. But the good thing was that when people came to me, by then I was working as a trainer and I was working partly as a speech therapist and practicing that. So, for example, when you have a voice problem like this, you would come in my room. And I could, at the moment that you started to talk on the phone, I start to get that information already.
Mm.
So I helped a lot of people learning the technique to keep their voice. How do you say that? Hygienic, how to keep it up
Mm.
and how to keep it healthy, but also notice these are the signs in your life that you have to pay when they show up. Pay attention.
Yeah. Wow. Just wow. So in so many ways your story started with what seemed to you as normal, as what you thought everyone could hear.
Yeah,
You could hear feelings in the voice,
yeah,
which then turned into actual understanding of that person's life or trauma maybe as well that they've gone through, so that helped you to be able to understand what was the cause and effect of the vocal problem.
absolutely. And there's a Dutch expression, and the Dutch expression is: de stem is de spiegel van de ziel. The voice is actually the mirror of the soul.
I haven't heard that one. As well, I mean, the thing is, I've heard that obviously the eyes are the window to the soul, but the voice is
Also,
the mirror to the soul. I love that. Yeah. And when I mean, it's funny how you're speaking because I'm very intensively listening to you, and a lot is resonating with me because I used to have a lot of vocal issues.
really.
Yes, my throat chakra is probably one that is most blocked. And when I was younger, I was always losing my voice, always having laryngitis. So it's interesting to hear this
Mm.
for me, to understand what that is. And would you say with some of your clients, perhaps, that you have noticed that some of their vocal issues may be in relation to past lives?
Mm, this is a very good question. And I realize when you ask me this that I let's start a little bit before that. A lot of people don't take it that there are more lives than just the life that we're living.
Mm-hmm.
So for a long time I shut off that door, and I think I cannot tell you when that started to change. Actually, it's more like they're mingled. All the information is mingled, and it's not that I hear, ooh, you like spicy food. Those are not the things that I hear. The things that really have an impact on our whole being, those are the things when I can listen to. And the other person, it's also good to mention this, need to be willing to put that door open just
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit, that a beam of light can shine through, so you can be helped with issues that might be very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I also noticed that in the voice, things can get clogged, but also in our body. So, for example, when you're told, well, you have to shut up, you're just a little, or you can't sing, your voice is too loud, you got an ugly voice, your voice is too high. And a lot of things are not intentionally hurting people during their upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
You're only allowed to speak when I ask you to speak. I still hear it on Aruba to children. I didn't ask you anything. Quiet down. And those can, depending on the child's character, can be very, very painful and traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we often don't think about it like that, when you just very quickly say, shut up, or whatever it is that we throw out, and how that affects people energetically, and where that suppresses, I presume, would be in the throat, where it's held, to suppress the voice, or that internal sort of listening, a an unconscious listening, to obey authority, or parents in this aspect. As a child, that's who you listen to, that's who you look up to, and that suppressed voice. And there can be that pattern, I suppose, as well, can't there, through generations
Yeah.
of being told this. And it's I feel, mostly now is the time that we are requiring to break these generational patterns, and work such as what you do, and so many other light workers as well, is so important to be. But what I love about you, I've never really come across, I've never come across the work that you do, which is why I find it so fascinating. And I had a question that sort of came up while you were talking and sharing that. Did you ever, when you were sort of exploring this about yourself, did you ever record your voice? And
Oh, yes.
yeah, okay, tell us.
Thousands of times. And the funny thing is, because when you're doing that education as a speech therapist, I had a very sharp S, like this. I had to change it. You have to record and listen to yourself. I think I've done it 1,000 times, more than 1,000 times. But because our skull projects the voice in a different way than what I hear from you. I start to hear your voice as soon as it leaves your mouth, but you also hear that projection in your head. So suddenly you hear your voice and you think, what? No, that's not me. I had to get used to my own voice. And many people do. And bringing up this topic, there's also a lot of shaming and blaming around voice. And what I mean is, for example, like with bodies, there's so much going on about having the perfect body, and that is difficult to accept, that we're perfect in ourselves, just like our voice. It's so unique. You can't even sell it anywhere, because there's only one voice like yours, and that makes it so special. And that's the same with your body. But for example, when you're so called pretty in what social society rules are for being pretty, and you have a voice like this, ooh. But it's also the other way around. When people call you not that pretty, and you have that beautiful voice, then suddenly your social ability rises because you have that beautiful voice. So there's so much related to the voice. Or you're at a party and you're looking for somebody. Well, somewhere in the back that person is. And without, on the subconscious level, we start to listen. Do I recognize that voice?
Mm.
And I think it was Harvard study that showed that everybody, literally everybody, is able to detect 24 emotions out of the voice.
Wow. Yes. Yeah.
And you would, when, for example, when we would have started this conversation and you ask me, hey, Manuela, how are you? And I say, well, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Or I'm fine. And there's that high pitch that tells you, oh, it's not that good.
Wow. Yeah. The tones are so important, aren't they? And like you said, other people can hear it, and they don't necessarily pick up on it. What would you say defines a beautiful voice then?
To me, every voice is beautiful because it projects you and your life and your previous life. It's for me like a book. It contains the whole you. So in the beginning, when I started to work as a speech therapist, people asked me, but what about Joe Cocker's voice? I said, I love it. Yeah. But it's cracky. I said, that's why I love it. There's no such thing as the perfect voice. And we hear it with singing. When we listen to the program, The Voice on television, the right voice is the voice that's able to connect with other people and is able to reach the heart from the other person, to touch it. And we experience it all with songs that can really touch our heart so deeply.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. But it doesn't necessarily have to be singing, like a beautiful voice is kind of often depicted as a singer when you hear, but it's even just in the sound and the tones and speaking from the heart that can really be seen and felt by another when there's like you were saying, really with the tones. And I mean, it's funny actually now that we're talking about this, because it's so many ways when you can see through the bullshit sometimes when people are talking. But you know what I mean. And it's like, and what I don't see it as maybe the voice, but it very much can be. I just feel it on an energetic level. But actually, like you said, it's the projection from the voice that is not in alignment with the energy of the heart and what they're really wanting to say. And I sometimes stare at people and I'm like, okay, like, I mean, this is what you're saying, I come to switch off almost because it's so ingenuine, or in certain circumstances, and that it comes through the voice, doesn't it? It really does come through the voice. Would you be able to share with us maybe a client story of yours that was, I don't know, one that maybe is very special and dear to you?
Wow, I have many. For example, I think in my work, it was a gift that I could hear when people were having issues during their childhood, who can be very traumatic. But you cannot, when you meet somebody for the first time, hey, I hear this and that. Is that correct? Tell me. No. So always at the end, I ask them if there's anything that you feel kind of uncomfortable with, but actually that's on the tip of your tongue that you want to scream out. I'm dealing with this, but I don't dare to share it with anybody. Then please consider it to share it now, or consider to share it next week. And then we made a new appointment. And let's say in 90% of the cases, the next time that they came, they told me, you made me think last week. And I'm dealing with this and this and this and this. And I'm having a hard time with this. And I think that's connected to my voice problem.
they're not speaking out about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they were holding back emotions. They were built up for a long time, or maybe in a short period of time. Doesn't always have to be built up for a long time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then we did exercises like just screaming freely and stamping on the ground, or like a little kid laying on the ground and moving your hands and feet and just do wah. And that was long before there was straw phonation, because you can just take an average straw like this one.
Yeah.
You can take a bottle, or not even a bottle, but when you scream, I will demonstrate it here.
Okay,
It
yeah.
will sound like. So at the end of the day, when you feel very frustrated or something happens, you can just go to your room and scream it out
Into the straw.
Yeah, to the straw, and even in some water. I didn't bring any, but that's it. It is very freeing, and not only for your soul, but I always look at people's faces, because the jaws, we hold a lot of tension in the jaws because we withhold what we wanted to say, because it's not socially accepted for many, many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still there. And allowing yourself to let it go and give it back to the universe, it's so freeing. So I help many people with trauma. And last year, what changed my work completely, I wasn't able to visit my kids and my husband for 6 months because of COVID. And that was the time that my spirit guide started to talk with me in a different way. He said, Manuela, when is the time that you're just going to freely share your gift? So things are happening like, how to put it? Well, there are many touching stories. For example, there are a few that really touched my heart lately, from broken relationships, and that the guides are guiding me back for the first relationship people had, where they were hurt, and that there is still kind of a blockage or clogged energy in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody never worked with energy, but when they're able, through my meditation, to visit their heart internally, being able to sense that dirt that they want to get rid of, and then transform it and send it back. And when you see their face at the end, it's amazing. But also the stories about their life when you're left by important people, and that guides are telling me, hey, at this age, something really traumatic happened. Ask it. And at first that person said, no, nothing special. And then 5 minutes later, they break down in crying. Yeah, that was a time that something very dramatic happened in our family. And then you're at my age, over your 50s, I will turn 50 next year, and that you're able to let it out and scream it out, and let your body show what's needed to free yourself from that baggage. Do you call it baggage in English? That you've carried around your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It just is so much wisdom coming from you. And I just have one question, maybe more so for the listeners, and just to clarify, when you are connecting with a client and you are mentioning, you're getting messages from your spirit guides, is it your spirit guides that you're connecting with, or is it theirs?
Both.
Okay, so like in a combination.
Yeah. And a lot of times
are telling you what to ask, and then you're getting the response.
Yes. Yeah. But the other person, my client, can also, it's more like we're having this conversation. It's not a a one-way conversation. They can ask things and their guides will answer. It's not just me telling them, hey, I have to tell you this, we're going to do this exercise, you have to gain this knowledge. No, it's like a conversation you and I are having. And what I really love about, especially my guides, but also theirs, sometimes I don't translate it really well. And when I have to bring a message from which I think, then I try to soften it. And most of the time say, no, that's not what we said. Please just tell
how it is. That's a tough task. Because some spirit guides go very direct, very on form, very blunt. They don't have the emotional decency or courtesy that obviously we have in today's society. Oh, that's funny.
And the cool thing is that and that's something new from the last weeks. What's coming up is that people I talk to, they start to sense their spirit guides while we're working together. So there's happening a lot around the world right now, but also with people. So when I say, okay, because their spirit guides are telling me, okay, this is how they can sense it. I'm on their right side right now. Ask them, what's the sensation on their right side? Don't tell them yet. And when I started I say, okay, what does it feel like on your right side? Well, I feel very warm. It's almost like somebody is standing there. Ooh, and then last week I had the conversation with somebody, but now I suddenly can see it. And it was so amazing. And later on, she told me, you know what? I'm able to see energies right now. So we were able to open up that door that was closed for such a long time. And it was almost like that lady gave herself permission to open that door to her own gift. But they are always very, very humorous. And I also want to take out a myth that your spirit guides are with us, like almost here close to us, and they will never bring a message that will harm you. They are only there in your best interest, always, and they love you unconditionally. I wish I could say I love unconditionally, but for sure I'm not there yet. But they do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really interesting, actually. And I feel like, I know you said you wanted to share a myth, because there is a lot of misconceived perception around what a spirit guide is, or how do you know you're speaking to a spirit guide and not just an entity, or an entity attachment and things like that. Now, this is a long conversation that we definitely won't go into today because of the differentiation.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, I think definitely another time. But what I wanted to say, just to sum up what you were saying, was not only are you helping people to obviously overcome this trauma through what they hold within their voice, but you're deepening their connection to their spirituality and to connect with their spirit guides, to be able to trust their intuition, to know that what they are doing in this life and on their path is guided divinely. And so that's, wow, is just incredible. And I really briefly want to just very quickly go into something that you mentioned a few weeks ago on our call. And it was about the intergalactic beings that have come through to you now. Just very briefly, I'm just so interested. I just want to, if you can, sum up a very quick summary of this of your journey and how that started, and then that is it. I would just love to hear. And I'm sure
I really feel right at the spot right now, but this is the it started in 2015. I feel myself even blushing. Yeah, one day I was sitting in the room with the dog and my daughter, and a few weeks ago a friend of mine called me. She said, Manuela, you know what? Intergalactic beings are entering my room. And I knew that she sometimes smoked pot. I said, what did you take? But she said, no, really, it's happening. And then a few weeks later, it happened myself. It was such a big one, more than 3 meters, entering our room. The dog started to bark. It looked like a lizard, but what I've read about it, they always show themselves in a way that we can recognize them. And my daughter said, with some cursing, what is going on here? What's happening? She saw it and she felt it. And that was a journey that started off. I started to work with them, with my friends. I was able, I that's what I love about Peter. He's into everything.
Yeah.
He said, but this is you. Oh, I'm not surprised at all. And a few weeks ago, there is a new one. He said, call me Boni. Call me Boni. And yesterday, and I was meditating. I like it. That's why I like this question. And they were showing me how I could compress in a layered way with ultraviolet blue and all these different shapes in between, compress it and let it extend. Do you call it extend? Extending? Yeah. Expand. Thank you. Yeah, expand. So yesterday I asked Peter, do you want to be my guinea pig with that one? And he said, of course. So I put my hand on his belly and said, what are you doing now? I feel everything contracting. I said, I just don't know. I just let them work with you. And then within 1 minute, he was asleep, but he was not asleep. He was in that kind of meditative state. He said, it is so calming, like somebody hits you with a hammer, but in a good way. So I'm sorting out right now how it works. I know I have to start to do this work, this energy work. And what I like about it is that a lot of them, they work with a team. So I have this funny, I call him guy called Booney, call me Booney. I really love it. But I see in the back that he's up with a team, sometimes with 5, sometimes with 6. And it's only me, like I'm a generator or a conduit to make it accessible to people. But one of the amazing things that I experienced in Holland was that a friend of mine was having tinnitus. And after 3 sessions working with her, it's starting to get less because you cannot do anything with tinnitus.
Yeah.
And one day I remember it looked like something came out of my fingers, like a scissor-like thing. And I was looking at it and I thought, what's happening here? And I had to widen my mind as well, that we're not here all by ourselves. I already knew that, but that they're always coming to help us. And they're so loving and funny. Oh my gosh. So yes, thank you for putting me on the spot.
Yes, well, I want to, because I feel, like you just said, in so many words, really, that this work is something you are going to be expanding into your offerings. So I think it was important to talk about this at your beginning stage, because I do believe this will be integrated part of your work, which you mentioned. So having said that, Manuela, where can people find you? How can people connect with you? And do you have anything coming up that you would like to share?
Well, people can find me on Instagram on spiritual.mindset.Manuela and on Facebook on Manuela Vanderhorst, but I will write it for you. And right now, actually, this is actually my goal, Francesca. I want to help 1 million people.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. But when people connect with me through your page or through this podcast, they can book a session with me for 77 euros instead of 100 euros for a 1-hour session. And they can decide what they want, if they want to work with their spirit guides in their voice, or if they want with their interstellar energy. That's by choice.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Manuela. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've shared so much wisdom, and I think I'm really going to take up the straw technique and screaming into a straw, because I don't think I manage to express myself enough when I do have a frustrating day or something, you know, I'll just meditate and go to bed. But you really touched on the importance of vocalizing those emotions. And thank you so much for all your wisdom shared today. It's been a pleasure.
Me too. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for being your guest. Bye.